Can the Carolina Panthers win the Super Bowl? We'll talk about it next on Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we will get back to that interesting question. We'll get to Georgia Southern winning their 9th straight and Troy holding off South Alabama. We'll try to go as much through the Sunbelt basketball from the weekend. Also, Colton Joseph ended up at Wisconsin, and Alonza Barnett III ended up at UCF. We'll probably do more about that on Tuesday's episode. All right. Didn't see a whole lot of incoming. We'll have to see how that goes over here in the next day or two. But I did want to talk about this. All right. Because obviously it doesn't specifically go to the Sun Belt, but the Carolina Panthers are your NFC South division winners. They have an 8-9 record. I am recording this as Baltimore is playing Pittsburgh. So I don't know what that outcome is going to be, or would the Ravens fall behind the Panthers overall in the standings? Because the top 14 teams get in. 7 from the AFC, 7 from the NFC. And right now, Carolina is the 17th best team in terms of record. But my God, they won their division. How about that? They're in the playoffs. Not only are they in the playoffs because they won their division, they're hosting a home game. Holy cow. Now, remember, the standard for postseason play by all those guys that didn't want the G5 in there, can they win the championship? It wasn't even can they win a game. Can JMU or Tulane win the college football championship? The obvious answer was no. I think it's no. I don't think that's necessarily the goal. That may be the goal from other people, all right? But I don't think Alabama was going to win the championship. We saw that. Texas Tech certainly wasn't going to win the championship, and we saw that as well, all right? For Tulane and JMU, honestly, in G5, goal is to win a game in the college football playoff. That's the goal. You get further than that, you way exceeded what anybody thought you could do. All right. Can the Carolina Panthers win the Super Bowl? No. I'm going to put that down there right now. Put that up as bulletin board material if you want to. The Carolina Panthers are not going to win the Super Bowl. They can't win the Super Bowl. They will not win the Super Bowl. They may win a home game, but as Saints fans, no reason to bring that up, but understand how that all works out, unfortunately, moving forward, because the Saints won. The Saints ended up going out to Seattle because they had a better record, and I believe the Saints were the wild card team. So that's going to happen. But let's not move the goalposts, all right? Carolina can't win the Super Bowl. They do not have one of the top 14 records in the NFL. They shouldn't be allowed in. Oh, but Dave, the NFL is all even, right? Any given Sunday, yada, yada, yada. Go back to week 1. I mean, right now, the New England Patriots have had one bad half in about 3 months. Basically, since they beat the Bills, they've had one bad half against the Bills in the last 3 months. One of them, before that, though, they lost to the Raiders. They lost opening weekend of the season to the Raiders. All right. I thought I was going to say something about the Cowboys, but they decided not to show up against the Giants because they're better than the Carolina Panthers. Although head-to-head, Carolina beat them. So Carolina deserves to be in. All right. That's all I'm saying. You know, if you want to go back, right, we talk about the 12 best teams getting into the playoffs. Now, maybe this is something not quite along those lines. Do you know the last time the best team won the NHL Stanley Cup? The best team, meaning the President's Cup winner. The team with the most points at the end of the season, or the President's Trophy. Is the President's Cup President's Trophy? I think it's the 2012-2013 Chicago Blackhawks. It's been over a decade since the best team with the most points during the regular season has won the Stanley Cup. So the best team doesn't necessarily win. In fact, in the NHL, it rarely wins. And in the NHL, because of the way the game is, a hot goalie can carry your team and upset number one seeds. That happens all the time. It's happened twice, I think, in the NBA. I think the Heat actually got to the NBA Finals as an 8 seed, right? And the Nuggets were the first team. Dikembe Mutombo with the ball over his head ended up beating. I think the Nuggets is beating the Nuggets. Is that ironic or a coincidence? Didn't the Heat lose to the Nuggets? The Nuggets beat Seattle, I think, the year after Seattle lost to the Bulls. But so that rarely happens in the NBA, but it's happened. We've had wild card teams. It didn't take that long for a wild card team, over a decade. All right. The Raiders were the first wild card team to win an NFL championship. And obviously, baseball, gets teams going all the time, right? The Twins were barely 500 when they won their first World Series in '87. They weren't very good at the time, but they got in because they split up the division. They split up the league into 2 divisions, and you got a weak team in, but they only have to win so many games, and they get to go and play with the World Series. All right. So again, a lot of people are going to move the goalposts on telling me and you that because the NFL is basically all the same level, which it is, obviously there's good teams and bad teams, right? That there's a huge difference between, say, Georgia and JMU, which there is. Honestly, there is. But in this case, we have a division winner with a losing record, not one of the top 14 teams, not only into the playoffs, but hosting a playoff game. Don't want to hear it. All right. That's why these G5 teams belong. And as we've started to begin the show with, can the Carolina Panthers win the Super Bowl? No. So they shouldn't be in the playoffs. You want to tell that to Carolina fans? Everybody out there? All right. I don't. I think they're going to have a great time. They're going to try and pull off a massive upset. And who knows what happens the next game. All right. I mean, no one's been able to try and figure out the Panthers for most of the year. Every time they win, they end up losing. And every time you think they're going to lose, they end up winning. So we can't figure them out. But on the standards that they set for college, being one of the top 12 teams, being able to, they forgot winning. They just went right past winning a game. Can you win the championship? No. And so the Carolina Panthers don't deserve to be in the NFL playoffs because they can't win the championship. That was basically the standard. Yep. And so it'll be interesting to see on how guys are twisting themselves in pretzels. And they'll say, no, it's apples and oranges. It's something completely different. That's not what they said. We'll see how much fun we have with that here over the next, week or so. Paul Feinbaum may surprise us. He'd be like, you're right. Carolina Panthers don't deserve to be in the playoffs. He may just go that way. We'll see if it gets brought up. All right. And so we got plenty of pro football and college playoffs. It'll be a lot of fun here over the next week or so. I'm a Pats fan, so we'll see. It's been a tremendous season. Been a lot of fun to follow them. You hope they can win at least one ball game, and then we'll see. They actually avoid the Bills. They cannot play the Bills until the AFC Championship game. So if the Bills win, the Bills get the Broncos because the Patriots get the 7 seed. So the Broncos will get the lowest seed. So the Patriots will avoid the Bills or the Broncos. They only have to play one of them. That's not the worst thing. And if it is the Bills, it would be in New England if they both get there. Both teams need a couple of wins. All right. I went off topic. All right. Let's talk Sunbelt basketball. All right. Georgia Southern. Charlie Henry has the Eagles flying high. They have won 9 in a row. We'll do that when we come back right after I tell you about FanDuel. Fridays always feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern Time have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect. Right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app, see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, this is, I believe, Charlie Henry's third season with Georgia Southern. I believe I have that right. And remember, it did not start out terribly well back in the day. And they had a major improvement from year one to year two because they didn't they start out like 0-10. Let me see. Because they started out very slow in the 23-24 season. Oh, they did. No, I was close, but no cigar, as the judge would say. They were 0-12. All right. Now they finished 9-24. So you go from 0-12. They finished actually 8-10 in the conference. So it went from 0-12, and you finished up 9-12. All right. Doesn't sound great, but that's much better than being where the Cajuns are right now. That was uncalled for. Sorry. Anyways, but then the next year, kind of an up and down year, a little inconsistent. They did finish 17-16, but the same 8-10 in the conference. All right. This year is something completely different. They have won 9 in a row, although they did lose their first ball game to East Carolina, 92-89. They won 3 straight. I mean, then how about this? Lost to Georgia Tech by 2. Did get blown out by Florida State. Lost to Youngstown State and lost to UTSA November 25th. They haven't lost since Thanksgiving. They have not lost since before Thanksgiving. And we're in the new year. They beat Houston Christian right after Thanksgiving on November 29th. They beat Louisiana Tech. They beat Gardner-Webb. They beat Coastal Georgia, whatever they are. They beat West Georgia, Georgia State, James Madison overtime, Coastal Carolina in overtime, and hung on to defeat, held off, Old Dominion 93-86. All right. In what appears to be a good basketball game. Old Dominion didn't shoot it all that well, 39%, but 20-25 from the free throw line. Georgia Southern shot 47%. They both made 7 out of 21 threes for Old Dominion, 8 out of 27 for ODU. Georgia Southern also good from the free throw line, 24 out of 30. Georgia Southern out-rebounded them, 47-39. Turnovers were about the same. This is just a good basketball game. Fouls were, actually, Georgia Southern had 3 more fouls called on them. They did lead at one point in time by 23 points. So this game got a little bit closer than Georgia Southern would have liked. But Georgia Southern is 12-5, 4-0 in the Sun Belt. Old Dominion falls to 4-12, 1-3 in the Sun Belt. Troy is the only other undefeated team right now, and we'll get to them in a little bit. All right, let's quickly check out who did the scoring for Georgia Southern. Kind of balanced, and some of that bench scoring as well. They played 9 guys. You did have Alden Applewhite with 17, Spud Webb with 2 Ds had 16, Tyron Moore had 16, Shannon Carter had 12, and then off of the bench, they scored 30 points off of the bench. Nicavian White had 8 points. Andres Burney had 4 in 10 minutes. Kari Dunn had 9 in 18 minutes. And Dwayne Williams Jr. had 9 in 13 minutes. That's really efficient off the bench. That's really good bench play. Although I would tell you, so did Old Dominion, as it turns out. They actually maybe scored more, 22 and 12. That's a 34 points. Did I do that right? Yeah, I think so. So they got some scoring off the bench. Casey Shaw led Old Dominion with 23 points. A couple other guys were in double figures. All right, so let's see where Georgia Southern, what they have coming up. They are at South Alabama, which will be interesting. That's on national TV this Saturday, 2 p.m., of course, meaning I can't watch it when it's happening. Then they're going to find out how good they are. They get Old Dominion again and then Coastal. But then Arkansas State is visiting them and Troy. So they have this 4-game homestand, and the last 2 are going to be very tough. So they're going to find out how good they are. Plus, not to mention, going to play South Alabama on national TV is going to be interesting as well. So Charlie Henry has this team going in the right direction. Took a little bit. Let's be honest. It has been not the overnight sensation that some others have had, but they absolutely got him going in the right direction. All right, another nice win on Saturday was Marshall holding off App State. And all of a sudden, Marshall has won 3 in a row, and 5 out of 6, they've had some tough losses. Otherwise, UNC Wilmington, I'm told they should have won that ball game. Ohio lost 88-81, and they lost to Troy in Alabama 70-63. The Herd beat App State 88-81. And again, another good college basketball. We like that. Good college basketball games. Marshall shot 53% to App's 47. Marshall made 12 3-pointers, 18 out of 25 from the free throw line. Sometimes assists are underrated. They had 20 assists to App's 12, which means seems like App's going one-on-one, but I'm not totally sure on that. And actually, Marshall at home was called for 25 fouls compared to 17 for App. But App's got a little bit of size. They're going inside. They had 36 points in the paint versus 26. Marshall improves to 10-5 overall, 2-1 in the Sun Belt. App State 9-7, 2-2 in the Sun Belt. All right. Let's see if we can get one more game in there before we get to the next. Let's see. Well, we can do the Cajuns. We can do Southern Miss and the Cajuns. Cajuns have now down to 3-13. Southern Miss is tough. I think Southern Miss is better than their 9-7 record. They're 74. They beat the Cajuns 74-67. And once again, the Cajuns, as we mentioned in the recap, they were up. You know, they had a 6-point lead over South Alabama, and they couldn't finish that one off. That was with about 3 minutes left. Southern Miss led this ball game 33-27 at half, but the Cajuns had a little bit. I thought they had a little bit of a lead. Maybe not. They were up by 1. That's a little bit of a lead. All right. So they led it, and that's with 8 minutes left to go. I thought it was a little bit. I thought it was different. No, it wasn't. It was not. All right. So they were in the ball game, but they never had a chance to close it out. I read a Quantas White quote saying it was there for the taking, and it really wasn't. You got to be within a couple of buckets. You know, they had it to 4 with 4 minutes left to go, but you know, then they got another layup with 3:16 left to go, and they're down 4. All right. That's not easy to do, although other teams have. All right. So, Cajuns fall to 3-13, but Southern Miss and 1-3 in the Sun Belt. Southern Miss 9-7, 3-1 in the Sun Belt. All right, we're just going to keep our eyes on that. We know Jay Ladner's father passed away. Winning a couple of games, I got to make him feel a little bit better. They get Texas State and Monroe. They got a chance to go on a little bit of a streak, and they will be back at home after being on a 3-game road trip to Louisiana Swing. They played LSU, ULM, and the Cajuns. Let's see who did the scoring in this ball game. For Southern Miss, Daji Barnett had 24 points, led the way. I mean, nice stat line. 7 out of 9 field goals, 10 out of 11 free throws. That's outstanding. Gotta like that. Dylan Brumfield, 7 out of 10. He had 15 points. And Tyleek Weeks had 12. And they also got some bench scoring. Israel Hart had 11 off of the bench. For the Cajuns, Laverne had 18 points. Josh Lewis is the guy to keep an eye on. He's the real big prospect. He had 12. Dorian Finister had 13. And they got a few points off the bench as well. Jackson Olvera had 9, but just 1 of 8 shooting from 3. And again, a couple of guys are out for the season for the Cajuns. It's going to be a long season for Louisiana, but I don't think Quantas White is quite going anywhere, despite looking at a record for futility. We'll see if they get to those 7 wins. All right. Meanwhile, Troy, do you battle for the belt in basketball? I don't think they do, but nice win for the Troy Trojans over South Alabama. We'll talk about that next, right after I tell you about Game Time. There's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, being right there in the middle of it. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But getting those tickets, that part used to be so frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. When you open up the Game Time app, you can look at the upcoming college football games or basketball games and see how surprised I was to find out what great seats are available. The app is incredibly easy to use. You can go from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. I love being able to see the view from my seat before buying, so I know exactly where I was getting. The zone deals stood out. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Seeing college football tickets starting as low as $25 made it easy to plan a game day trip. Knowing prices include all fees up front makes the whole process stress-free. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right. Troy holds off South Alabama. Wins by 10. I believe 59. I can't find it. 59-49. I actually watched the end of that ball game. Got back home so I could see that one. Troy is tough. Troy's very tough. South Alabama still looking to, get dealing with injuries that they're not going to get guys back from. They were in this ball game trailing 30-23 at half. It was actually a 6 or 7 point game when I tuned in. But South Alabama's defense is tough. Troy averages about 80 points a game. They shot 34%, only scored 59 points. South Alabama usually scores a little bit more, but Troy's defense is good as well. The difference in the ball game, Troy made 13 threes, including a couple of big ones at the end, to South Alabama's 3. You don't have to go more than that. It doesn't matter what the percentage is, right? And it doesn't matter what the free throws are. South Alabama made 10 more free throws than Troy did, 14-4. And this game was in Troy, Alabama. Rebounds are even, all right? Troy's 40 to South Alabama's 37. Offensive rebounds, 15-11. That could be the difference. Defensive rebounds, 26-25. But just like against Texas State, South Alabama allowed a couple of defense or offensive rebounds late, and Troy made them pay for it with 3 pointers. Kobe, I think I call him Cody. It's Kobe Campbell. He was 5 of 12 from 3-point land, and that's all that he did. So they allowed him to do that, and he hit a couple of late ones, and he had 15 points. Thomas Dowd had 18 points. No points off the bench for Troy Trojans. Interesting. So that's interesting. Cooper Campbell had 6 points for the Troy Trojans. For South Alabama, Chaz Harris had 18 points. Again, he's 7-9, kind of a point guard-ish, but doesn't shoot threes, which is not the first time that's ever happened with South Alabama. Lewis June had 10 points. Randy Brady doesn't shoot at all, right? Only grabbed 3 rebounds in this one, did have 2 steals. He was actually just 0 for 1 from the field with no points. Adam Olson had only 5 points. He was 2 of 10, and he was coming off a big ball game, like 24 points. And so Troy made sure that they got to him. So Troy, 10-5, they're 3-0 in the Sun Belt. South Alabama, 11-5, 2-2 in the Sun Belt. See who Troy has coming up. Troy is at Arkansas State and at the Cajuns. One of those games is going to be really good at the 7th. So that's Wednesday night, right? Arkansas State is hosting Troy. That's a big one. And South Alabama, we already told you, they're playing Georgia Southern, but that's Georgia Southern's next ball game. That may not be the I was going to say the Cajuns, but it is not. It is South Alabama's next ball game. They don't play until the 10th on Saturday. So they have the week off. Both teams will be rested for that ball game. We'll see if South Alabama can get healthy. All right, but a little Sun Belt on national TV. All right, elsewhere in the Sun Belt, how about Georgia State all of a sudden playing a little bit better? And what a blowout they had against App State. They were losing at halftime. 34-25, and then they explode to win 64-30 in the second half, 64-37. They win it 89-71. Wow. Georgia State shot 49%. I can only imagine what that was in the second half. They made 17 3-pointers. They were perfect from the free throw line, 14 of 14. And although they're just 5-11 and 2-2 in the Sun Belt, maybe they have found something. Jonas Hayes has found something. They have won 4 of their last 6 ball games. They've lost to Georgia Southern, which was on the road in Statesboro. They did get blown out, and they lost a tough ball game, 84-80 to Marshall. All right. Otherwise, they've beaten App State on the road. They beat Jacksonville State at home. They beat Columbia, South Carolina, and they just went on the road to beat Coastal. All right. Now it's going to get a little tough. App State can be tough, and they get Marshall. So they've already played those 2 teams. They're getting them again on Thursday and Saturday. So we'll see how Georgia State does. Again, 5-11 doesn't really matter. The 2-2 in the Sun Belt does. That does matter. All right. Let's see if we can find out who did what in this ball game. For Georgia State, Malachi Brown had 23 points, and Jelani Hamilton had 22. How about Trey Scott off the bench? My goodness. 22 points in 32 minutes, 7-9 field goals, 4 of 4 from 3, 4 for 4 free throws. He also had 4 rebounds. That's an efficient 32 minutes, if not an explosive 32 minutes. Nice job. Okay. As for Coastal Carolina, Rasheed Jones had 18 points, and A.J. Dantzler had 16 points. All right. Coastal falls to 8-8, 1-3 in the Sun Belt. So quickly, standings in the Sun Belt: Georgia Southern 4-0, Troy 3-0, Southern Miss 3-1, Arkansas State and Marshall 2-1, South Alabama, Texas State, App State, Georgia State all 2-2. JMU with their first win in the Sun Belt over the weekend. We'll get to that tomorrow probably. Coastal Carolina is 1-3. JMU is 1-2. Coastal Carolina 1-3. Old Dominion 1-3. So is the Cajuns, and Monroe pulling up the rear 0-4, 3-13 in a conference. All right, we'll talk more about the transfer portal on Tuesday. We'll see if anybody is incoming more than just outgoing. So again, the news is Colton Joseph to Wisconsin. I'm looking to find out how much he got it because of the Internet rumors had it at $2 million. Goodness. Also should mention, Bill Belichick brought in another quarterback to compete with Gio Lopez. It's expected that Gio Lopez is still supposed to be the quarterback. Question is, does Gio Lopez still get his money if he's not the starting quarterback? Interesting. So we'll see that. And Alonza Barnett III ended up at UCF. All right. So congratulations to those two guys finding landing spots. I mean, I thought I saw, did I see 9,000 players were in the transfer portal? Is that right? 9,000 players? There's going to be a lot of guys that do not end up with landing spots. All right. Not great, Bob. All right. Someone's got to get a hold of this. Get sued. Do something. So you end up in negotiations. Jeez. Just to do nothing is, the word is, it's irresponsible. I was going to say reprehensible, but it's not quite reprehensible. But it is irresponsible. Right? Someone's got to do something. And you got a year. You got another year. Figure it out. All right? Figure it out. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, do need about 22 to 23 subscribers per week. Sunday's not the best day for that, especially with all the travel, and didn't put out a video for that. But we still got a couple. We just had a good week. We had a great month of December, as you can imagine that, from the Sun Belt Championship game in Harrisonburg all the way to the college football playoff. So we have grown by leaps and bounds over the last month or so. Again, we're trying to get to, if you're just joining us, 3,000 subscribers before February 13th or the first pitch. Although there's probably day games on February 13th, right? Marshall is not going to be playing the 6 p.m. ball game on February 13th in Huntington. All right. So the goal is 3,000 subscribers by first pitch on February 13th. All right. Want to thank you so much for tuning in. All right. Have a great week, everybody. We'll be back again on Tuesday. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day.